I'm in my Buddha chair today. Looks very grand on the TV screen. I get lots of people writing to me. And the majority of questions are people wanting me to comment or tell them what to do on a life circumstance, on something that's happening to them in the flow of life. I also get questions about awareness and no-thingness and everything, and lots of different questions and responses, but the majority are wanting me to comment about a life situation, wanting me to tell them what to do. And I have nothing to give. Nothing to give in this situation. This teaching is not about making the flow of life work in a certain way. And in the flow of life, I'm also talking about emotions and responses to situations. This isn't about changing responses. This isn't about changing emotions. Change of emotions and responses can happen. Huge changes in the personality can happen in awakening. But also people can stay the same. This is about seeing that none of that is you, is who you are. Your reactions, and it's tricky because I'm saying your reactions aren't who you are. Your circumstance, and it feels so personal. I really understand this. I intellectually remember it. I remember it. And there's really nothing the character can do about the life situations. So say if somebody is rude to you or aggressive to you, and it sticks in your mind, and your mind keeps going over and over and over again. How dare they say that? Who do they think they are? Oh, I'm going to tell them what's for. Wait till I next see them. I'm going to tell them what a beep they are, and da 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 da. And on it goes. And all the time you're feeling so uncomfortable. So the mind concludes, I've got to stop thinking. I've got to stop feeling this. But you can't. You can't make yourself stop feeling this. In that situation, you can't make yourself go into silence. If only I could stay in silence. If only I could have a silent mind. That whole dynamic is suffering, is what's veiling the silence. Behind that, the silence is watching it. The space is watching it. And I almost want to say, I'm sorry that I can't give you any hope. I really understand how uncomfortable suffering is. And people so desperately want me to say, yes, in this situation, you must do 10 mantras and walk around the house in silent meditation. You must do service. You must do da-da. None of it will get you out of suffering. Because in suffering, Part of suffering is trying to get out of suffering, is wanting to get out of suffering. That is part of it. When you're happy, you're never trying to avoid anything. You never want anything else. That's the dynamic between happiness and sadness. So when you are happy, you won't have that feeling. Suffering always comes with the feeling, get me out of this, get me out of this. Whether you think it's a situation outside of you, whether you think it's an emotional situation inside of you, whatever it is, suffering is. Some people will think, trying to get out of suffering, that dynamic is some sort of truth, is me searching for truth, is helping the situation, is you is some good element, or what will get you out of all this mind confusion. But any time you're trying to get out of suffering, of anything, that is suffering. That's that. And it's a brutal message. I know this. I remember it. I remember staying in bed for 4 days when I realized I couldn't get out of suffering. Trying to get out of suffering was suffering. And so I got into bed and I stayed in bed for 4 days, pissed off with God, with life. All that seems to come out of Lisa's mouth is talking about what happiness is and what suffering is. There's no prescription here, just description. And I'm not saying that any of the teachers that you go to that prescribe you things to do are wrong. I'm not saying they're right. They are what they are. And people on this path get caught up in looking at emotions and thoughts. And they think their happiness is in getting certain emotions or certain thoughts. And you can spend your whole life seeking in that. Seeking to have certain thoughts. Seeking for a still mind, a silent mind. Seeking for certain emotional reactions. I'm not a teacher. There are teachers out there. I had a teacher. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm not a teacher. I do not see students. I do not see people to help anymore. Why? Because I can't see a Lisa in here that needs help anymore. If I were to see a Lisa in here that needs help, if I were to be able to sense suffering or somebody here, then I would project that out and see that in others, see others that need help. I don't see that. I see everyone as liberated. And sometimes it's almost a surprise when they tell me they're suffering. It sounds odd. And I'm sitting there with someone and smiling and laughing, and then they tell me they're suffering, and it's surprising. I'm always ready for you to be happy. In the dynamics of a separate self, people are always trying to get the other to be somebody, to be a role. I'm just always ready for you to be happy. In the dynamic of self and other, they're always wanting you to play a role. When they perceive themselves as somebody and somebody else as an other, they're always wanting you to play a role, which is the opposite to happiness. My friend died recently. I've been helping him through the death process, physically helping him and spiritually helping him. I didn't really know that's what was happening at the time. We were just talking about happiness. And it was a beautiful process to watch, actually. Sad and painful at points. And in his story, life had to take everything away for him to find himself. By the end, all he could move was his mouth. He had a brain tumour, so he lost all movement in his body. Slowly, life took one thing after another away. In the beginning, he battled. He tried to fight each thing that he lost. And then as we talked more and more, that this is life and all the things that we held on to is our suffering. He felt relief, and as more and more things got taken away, he felt more and more relief. Because he was no longer allowed to identify with any of it, with his body, with his physicality. And people would go in and squirm as they saw him decrease more and more and more. And this just couldn't happen here. I didn't see him losing his body as a bad thing, as something that shouldn't be happening, because I don't see my body as who I am, my body as happiness. Therefore, I could not project onto him that his unhappiness was the loss of his body. And I was right. I'd said it to him again and again and again, and at the end, he said to me, my happiness is not my body. Who I am is not my body. I don't need to be able to move, to look. He lost his sight, to be happy. I can be happy with nothing. And he really had nothing left. He could talk up to the last 12 hours very quietly. And it was amazing to watch. He found his happiness himself in what most people would describe as hell. He found heaven. It was beautiful. In fact, it touches my heart just talking about it. And most people didn't know this, although a lot of people were taken aback by the way in which he dealt with it. He never complained, he never showed fear to people. People were very taken aback and surprised by this. But I know he died in peace. Though the body didn't die in peace, he died in peace. It wasn't even he died in peace. He was peace. He was heaven. Even though the body looked like hell, he was heaven. And when I said I helped him through the dying process spiritually, at the time I never saw myself as doing that. I never had any clue that this, or I never, not even I had a clue, I just didn't even really think about it, that this body-mind mechanism was being an instrument to guide him home. But that's all it was an instrument. I had no perception, really, that was happening. I knew I was talking to him a lot about it. I knew I was spending a lot of time with him. But it was never to do with me. It was just what life had written. Life had written it to appear this way in the story. And really, there's never ever a helper and a helped, a teacher and a student. And in death, this is always seen, in physical death. It has to be. As you lose more and more, all that's left is the watching nothing, or the watching, or the silent witness, whatever. Light, love, the That's all that's left when everything gets taken away. And it's that simple. It's always there. It's just the attention becomes on the drama. It's like if you always have this as your view, your hand as your view, this is your view. You'd think that you are the hand, that you're just this. But then when that's taken away, you see that you're just the watching. You see all this other stuff. You see that you weren't ever the stuff, you were just the watching. As it all gets peeled away. And all these things that you think are scary, the loss of movement of the body, all these things you project onto, the loss of all your money, becoming homeless, they're lies, they're tricks. Or if we take it down to, there's a fly coming. Is that a mosquito? What was I saying? And let's take it down to everyday living, because just the irritation of other people or something, getting irritated with other people. It's all a lie. That person is never, ever disrupting your happiness. It's a drama of the mind. This person did this to me. How dare they? Somebody asked me the other day about love and relationships. And I said I'd do a video on love and relationships. And from my experience, what happens in relationships is that most habits or most anxiety and issues are brought up in close personal relationships, or in love relationships. And so therefore they're apparent huge cause of suffering. But the suffering is always because you're seeing them as another person doing something to you. You're seeing them as a separate entity who can do something to you, who didn't wash the dishes because they didn't want to, because they're lazy. This isn't true. They didn't wash the dishes because that's what's written, because that's how it is. It was never ever them doing it. The mind hates this. No, I need someone to blame. I need someone to make guilty. I need someone to be in relation with. I need someone to be able to manipulate, to be able to do things to. There's nobody there doing anything. Life is just doing its dance. And now I find people so simple. They do their thing, they get angry, or they do their dance, or they're happy with me, and I'm not thinking about their prior story. I'm not thinking of them in time of, they're only doing this because of da-da-da-da. I never think about their motives, really. In some cases, practically, its motive might be looked at, but I never think about their motives as to why they've hurt me or why they've done this to me. That's suffering. And expectation too. Expectation of them loving you, of them doing this for you, of them showing you love. You are love. You don't need any of it. And I'm not saying that you then stay in a really abusive, unhappy relationship. But it's just a nice thing being loved by your partner. It's not the be all and end all. It doesn't create these huge dramatic responses. It doesn't mean you have to search the whole world to find your soulmate. Don't get me wrong, I find my boyfriend incredibly pleasurable, but I have so little drama with him. He does what he does. And sometimes this mouth needs to express things, but that's what it does too. It just expresses feelings sometimes. Good feelings or other feelings. It doesn't really matter. It just does its dance, and then he does his dance, and I don't take what comes out of his mouth as personal. He says at this moment in time he's not loving me as much as 2 days ago. It is what it is. Or that I'm irritating. Yeah. Can understand that this body-mind mechanism maybe can appear to create irritation. It is what it is. I don't need to examine it. Get out my microscope. What is it in childhood that created this? Why are these? How are we relating to each other? How can we make things better? How can we make things worse? And actually, discussion of these things might come up, but it's not. There's never any belief that anyone's doing anything. Lisa's just dancing. Lisa's just playing her game. She's not blaming. She's not feeling guilty about her actions. She's just doing them with the deep knowing that nobody's ever doing anything. Therefore, she's not in relationship with people in the same way. She's not doing the dance of self and other, which is a great relief. She's just doing the dance of life. And she's not even doing it though. It's just happening. Can you imagine how radical this is? To look at someone and just see them as just action, as just doing, not projecting a role, a story, what they have to give to you. They have to give you love. This is the main element in relationships. Not having a huge amount of hate towards them because they don't give you love. Because so many people in relationships have so much hate towards their partner because of this expectation they have of their other, of feeling let down because their partner didn't give them love. You'll never get love from your partner. You are love. You can have a glorious dance of love with them, an expression of love with them, but you are love. You don't get love from anything or anyone. You are love. And often love relationships can show you this most clearly. This is why it's the greatest human drama, the love drama, because this one can show you so clearly who you are. Can remind you and reflect back to you who you are so clearly. Because when you're seeing love in your partner, that's what you're seeing in you. It's never anything to do with them. It's just that when you see self and other, you just project self onto other. You are that love. And when you're projecting hate onto that person, that's what you're seeing in yourself, is that hate. And never take anything I say as prescription. It's always description. You don't have to be any way. You are what you are. Always. Always. And you could never have been anything different. Isn't that radical? You could never have been anything different. And neither could anybody or anything else. It was always perfectly in line. It's only a thought and an energetic contraction which tells you it's out of line. And this is the great illusion. This is what creates suffering. This is what everyone doesn't want. I don't know how I talk this long, 32 minutes. I'm sure I'm going to get a second bout and go on more. We've done death and love so far. The death of the lover. It really is just love. Just love. Who you are is love. You never need anything to complete you or give you this. When you know this, when you are this, you can truly love. Truly be. And when you feel you aren't this, the seeker will begin. I need to get love. And it always comes back down to everything in the whole world. Oh, no, I said that wrong. Everything in the mind, like everything in the dynamic of seeking is always seeking for love and trying to avoid fear. So as soon as you feel like you're not love, you're going to run and try and find it in the world. And you'll try and find that love in money, relationships, and you'll never find it. You'll always be disappointed when you look for that love in another, in animals, in possessions, in your clothes, in your food. Food's a huge one. Trying to find love in food. That's why we have so much obesity. And drugs. And then also trying to avoid fear. And that gets us to a lot of predicaments. What an amazing drama God set up. Amazing drama. This is the basis of games. The basis of the game. He set it up so you're trying to find love and avoid fear. And what you are is the love, is safety. You're never unsafe. You never have to run away from it. You never have to be scared. Ever. Your absolute security, your absolute whole, you're all of this. All of this. You're not separate. It's a great illusion that you're separate. You're all of this. It's contained in you. You're not in it. It's in you. The mind feels like it's in it. It's in life. but your true self is it. All of it. And all of it's arising in it. As it. As it. These words that I'm saying could never be any different. They're so divine and perfect as they are, as you sitting there watching, as the sound of the aeroplane and the trees rustling, and my feet that are going numb because I'm sat on my feet. Everything is always okay. It's the mind which tricks you, which tricks. There's no one really there to be tricked, but it's the dynamic of the mind which gives the impression that you're separate, that you need love, and that you need to protect yourself. You need to avoid fear. Things are scary. Oh yeah, I went off another bout. Another 10 minutes have passed. You don't need to work the character out. The character, however, is seen through as just the character, not who you are. You could go on for billions of lifetimes trying to work the character out, the psychology of the character, the situations. You can never make, and you can never create circumstances of life to always be peaceful. Because inevitably we're all going to die. And more than likely, the physical death of the body will be painful. The body hurts. When you hit it, it hurts. Things are going to change. You're going to lose things. This is life. Life is never going to be reliable. It's never going to go how the mind wants it, ever. But when you stop having ideas about life, it always delivers. When you stop thinking it needs to be a certain way, trust me, it always delivers because it's always here. Everything is accepted in it because there's no expectations of any way it should be. There's a window there. I'm looking out the window. I know you can't see it. The trees are all blowing. That's all the crashing sound is. Because in the summer here, the trees let off their honky nuts, their little nuts, and they let go of their leaves. And so this is what, when the wind blows, it all comes down. It's a nice sound. I don't know how I made it to 40 minutes. Whatever you see in me is you. Whatever you see in any of this is you. Therefore, how can you ever blame anyone? Ever. They are what they are. How can you ever feel guilty? Because you are what you are. Always. You never did anything wrong. And nobody ever did anything wrong to you. The character might feel that somebody did something wrong to them. But this isn't true. Nobody ever did anything wrong to you. It was just life happening. The tree just grows. And it might grow into another tree's space, and that other tree might begin to wilt and die. But it's not personal. It just grew. Didn't think, I'll grow and do this. And the same with the characters. The characters just act out their story, and the suffering comes when you think you are the story and you're controlling. If you could control, you would stop suffering. If you can control life, and control it right now, control the next thought you have. Who and what is controlling? Where is that controller? If you can control, make yourself happy. Make yourself react a certain way in situations. Who is there? Thoughts come from. You think that you have certain thoughts that are good thoughts. I mustn't think this, this is a bad thought. But that thought, I mustn't think this, I mustn't go down that line, it's suffering. Where is that thought coming from? Nowhere. Try and find that one's place. Is that you? All of them are coming from nowhere. There's no you thoughts. The one that thinks that it can control something is coming up from nowhere and falling back into nowhere. Find its place of origin. Does it come from somewhere? thought, I'm going to control this situation. I'm going to tell everyone to go and sit down now and be quiet. But that thought and that action just came from nowhere. Just arose and fell away. It came as impersonally as the thought, I hate that person, they're so rude. It just came up from nowhere. And what happens in the apparent liberation process, and it's always apparent, the liberation process, because at the end of the day there's only ever this moment, but in the apparent story there seems to be a seeing through of all this, a seeing that there's nobody there. Not all the time, as I say a million times before, some people just wake up like this and it's all seen. But there seems to be a gradual seeing that all of this is coming from nowhere, from nothing, and falling back into nowhere and nothing. I'm going to make this happen. This is just a thought, an action coming up, but it comes from no one. Who is there? There's no one there. It's an illusion. The most divine illusion. Oneness has hypnotized itself to believe it's true, so it can find itself again. So it can find itself in objects, in apparent people. And then finally in liberation, it finds itself again. The greatest love affair. The greatest. This is a story of love. This really is. It doesn't appear that way when you're suffering. I understand this, but it really is a story of love. The suffering comes when oneness hypnotizes itself as believing it's two. Suffering is then born, but because of that suffering, it creates a seeking for itself. And in that seeking for itself, it finds itself, which is love, absolute love. It's a divine game. It blows your mind if you try and think about it. It's beyond the thoughts of two. It's a divine love affair. You're never alone, and you never suffered. You've always been complete. You've always had everything you ever wanted and needed. It just appeared that you didn't. That's just an appearance. We're all lovers. We're all love. Absolute love. And this game of separation is always to find love. Even if that's in the latest, hottest pair of shoes, the seeking is always seeking for love. and avoiding fear. This is why romance is so high, because it highlights this love so clearly, more clearly than the shoes. Life is a game of love, a game of the heart. I mean, look at it. So I'm looking out the window and we've had rain late into the season here. So everything's beginning to really flower, really flower. So we have out of the ground this green stuff that grows, and then these amazing colour come out of the top. This amazing colourful form come out of the top. Then these little things with wings fly along to these colourful balls, and then take something from the colourful balls and fly off to the next one. I mean, look at this world. It's beyond what anyone could imagine. It's beyond. The mind takes it for granted, though. Well, I think I'm out of talking now. I love this chair. I always seem to record my videos in the same top. I do have different tops. Although, I really like this top. It has bugs on it. I like bugs. And birds, I like birds too. What's this? Oh, it's a human. Huh. I didn't realise the human was on here. Thank you.